Ooh, I just recorded too. I just forgot to record. So we're recording now. So what are the objectives today? We're going to explain why we need classes, why it's important that we use classes in regards to, once again, object-oriented programming. Create a class to define the blueprint for creating objects. And this blueprint is going to be something like a prototype. I think we all understand the concept of prototype. Hey, if you're going to start your own business, and you want to sell a new product, you kind of come up with a prototype. I'm sure anyone ever have a fidget spinner or seen a fidget spinner? Everyone's had it. I was just doing some cleaning and I found a couple of fidget spinners and like, they're dead. No one plays with fidget spinners anymore. I only got it because my son wanted fidget spinners. But I'm sure at some point in time, somebody came up with the prototype for a fidget spinner, right? They molded it, they did this, and they're like, wow, look at this is crazy. And I have the mold. All we need to do is, send this mold to China and we can build millions of these things relatively quickly and easily. So a class is similar to that. It's a blueprint for creating something, kind of a prototype. Now, we can add methods to a class, and methods are functions, and you learned about functions already, and you learned about callbacks already, which are just functions that are passed to another function as a parameter. That's really it. So within the function, you can call it. So a method itself is just a function that's associated with a class. It's been attached to the class, and the only way to invoke this function is to do it through the class. Properties, we're going to set properties on an instance of a class. So this class is going to have characteristics that describe it, and it's going to have methods that allow it to do things. Some of those things are concepts like getter and setter methods that allow you to get properties, new property values, and then set those on the properties that you have, or retrieve those properties. Then we're going to go into this concept of this. And this always trips people up. Hopefully I can explain it in such a way that, it'll make sense. And then we're going to make an instance of each class kind of customizable. And then we'll create methods to alter the properties of an instance. Like I said, there's this concept of kind of getter and setter methods that allow you to get properties and then set properties on objects. It's funny because I was just teaching this kind of concept to my evening class as well. Getters and setters, not related to like classes and object-oriented programming. There's definitely not there yet. But things like other libraries like jQuery have this kind of concept of methods and how to retrieve and set values on things. So, all right, cool. Today, what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be using the REPLs. I do like the REPLs. If you don't like them, you can let me know. I'm going to Slack them out. I'm going to use the REPL, type the code, watch it run here, and then ultimately I'm going to copy and paste it into the file so that I can push up all of the changes that we've done here, and then just put a link to REPL right here. And then so if you ever wanted to go back and see something that's more interactive, I just like something that the immediacy of this, being able to go here and just like type something, see it run, send it over, fork it, send it to me, send it to anybody else, figure out solutions. That's kind of why I go with the REPLs. All right. So I'm just going to move this REPL over here, okay? And then once again, once I do stuff, I'll copy and paste it. So why do we need classes, right? So if we were to have something like, say we have this instance here, they're giving us this kind of scenario where sometimes we need to repetitively create new objects with the same attributes. So imagine we wanted to create a bunch of hotels, and every hotel is going to require some of the same properties, even possibly some of the same default values, and then there might be some unique things for each hotel So maybe we create a extended prototype of this base thing, right? So here we have, so what if I was to say, hey, let hotel is equal to an object, right? Cool. This particular hotel is going to have a name, and we'll say it's, you know, Hotel California, right? Hotel California. This is an object, so we use commas to separate the key value pairs, and we always use colons to indicate this is a key, that's a value. This hotel is at a specific location, as are all of our hotels, California, right? Maybe we'll give it a rating as well. I don't know, the hotel just, we just opened up our unique, you know, boutique, so maybe we don't have a rating yet, or maybe we just want to let everyone know we are like the best rating 4. We have some tags here also. I'll just put here, I know this is kind of symbolic of the Hotel California song. I'm just going to create a few here. We'll say wine. I'm just typing the shorter ones. Lovely. All right. So we'll put that in like Facebook and Instagram. Here are some tags. Check out our hotels, right? Oh, missed the comma. And then we'll have rooms inside this hotel. This is going to be an array. And then this becomes an array of objects because rooms are going to have properties that describe them as well, right? So maybe a property like room number, right? Our hotel is going to have a lot of rooms. What room is this? Hey, this is room 102. It's going to have a size. Maybe we should say bed size here, but it's a queen double, comma. It's going to have a price here, $55. You can see that numbers don't need to be in strings of strings because, once again, they're numbers. And is it booked, right? So we can keep track of whether or not it's booked or not, right? So I have this hotel, and this hotel has some properties, right? These are properties. This is another property, and this is an array of objects. And once again, I could copy and paste this and create yet another object inside of it, right? So maybe this is 103. And so these are our rooms, right? Now, there's two instances that I do see the possibility of creating some sort of prototype, right? The idea of having a hotel, right? And maybe I would say something like, I don't know, Hotel California, right? Since this object is going to represent this hotel specifically, right? It's its name, so it needs to have the name. I'm not just going to call it hotel because I can't have multiple hotels defined just using the keyword, the naming convention hotel. And so what I see here is the possibility of creating some sort of prototype where maybe I could give it the name of the hotel that I want it to take on, the location of it, the rating, maybe give it some new tags because of the theme of this hotel. Maybe it doesn't gear towards wine. If it's in New York City, maybe it's nightlife, something like that. We have perhaps the same number of rooms, different rooms, more unique rooms. The price here in the middle of Manhattan is going to be way more expensive than, say, upstate New York or upstate California, something like that. So in order to do this, we would have to create another hotel completely, right? We could call it whatever we want, Hotel NYC, right? And now I have to do this. Oh, NYC, and now it's Hotel NYC. It's not located in California. It's located in New York. I'd have to change these properties, and we can go through it and make these subtle changes, right? But it requires at this point in time the need to copy paste, right? Copy, paste, make the edits. Copy, paste, make the edits. Now, doing this once or twice, I don't know, that seems pretty easy. I may not necessarily opt to go ahead and create a class if the thing that I'm doing is only require a copying and pasting of once or twice. That's not a big deal. But copying and pasting 1,000 times, manually editing things, that to me would constitute some sort of automation, some sort of blueprint some sort of prototype. That's the aim of object-oriented programming, to create a prototype. Just think like when we create an array itself is this reproducible thing, right? The minute I do anything like this, let R is equal to this array has methods and it has properties that exist the minute we instantiate it, okay? So in essence, the array itself is also some sort of prototype, right? It's this thing that if we create it, JavaScript's then like, oh, you created an array? Well, this array has all these things. Look at all the things you want to work with. Length, and some additional methods like looping constructs that we haven't yet gotten over. But it in itself is representative of something that once instantiated has additional functionality that just comes with it. And that functionality could also be extended if we so desired to do so, right? You know, some of you may, when you look at these hotels, may be like, how do I get all the way down to rooms, right? Like if I wanted to get to rooms, just as a little test, if I did do hotel NYC, how do I get to room number 2? Like, how do I get to that second object? Anyone want to walk me through that? Just curious. This is a nested thing. How would I do that? I'm just taking volunteers. Do I not have, oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm going to make sure I get the volume. Can someone speak just so that I know my volume's working?
Yo.
Oh, yeah, Jeremy. Awesome. The last time I was like, I didn't have my volume on, so I was like, why is no one speaking? Who wants to walk me through the process of getting from Hotel NYC to this room? I want to output that information for that object. Any ideas?
It would be Hotel NYC dot rooms, and then the square bracket, position 1, and then position 0.
All right, so let's, okay. Oh, I have to do it from here. Can't do it from here. So let's try that one more time, right? Hotel NYC, right? NYC, right? And you said dot rooms, bracket 0. Right? I'm going to run this just to see what we get. All right, we get that object. And now if I wanted the room number, I would just do room number, right? And I should just get the room number, okay? What you might find is that inside of this object, there may be things like, you know, amenities. And amenities may be an array of objects also. Like this nesting process can continue as long as the data structure requires that. Okay, so we could have done that, or we could have just said, hey, you know, amenities are, I don't know, jacuzzi, right? Hope I spelled that right. And if we wanted the jacuzzi, then I would have to do, hey, not room number anymore, but amenities 0, and I should get, can I read property 0? Did I spell this wrong, right? That's right.
Yeah, amenities is spelled wrong.
Amenities. I'm really bad at spelling. Did I misspell this thing again? Here, let me get rid of this. Nope. Why is that undefined? Let me try this. Rooms 0. Oh, because I did rooms 0. Amenities only exists in room 1. There's the jacuzzi, and if I wanted the first thing, I would get the jacuzzi back. Just so that you see, like, get used to this. Even like practice it on your own, because once we get to APIs, this is how you're going to like find the thing nested all the way down inside of the thing, okay? Cool. So we get the idea, right, of why we need to create, or this concept of prototype, right? I would like to have something that I just spit, or not spit, but give it some key value, give it some property values, and those property values are just kind of put in the right place. And you've already kind of learned how to do that with a function, right? So if I said function hotel, I could give it the name, and then we would have something, right? So in here, I could return an object that has a, a name of the hotel and then whatever name you provided, right? That's one instance of a way to create something that's reproducible. Call the function returns an object, and then I can kind of recreate this thing, right? And then we'll just have to say, oh, well, we have name, we have location, then I would just have to keep doing this location, and then we'd have to keep doing that location. But this is one concept. This is not where we're going down today, but I just want to show you that of the things that you have learned, functions are something that can be used to kind of create or reproduce a common thing, right? And it's just waiting to be called. So this function is just waiting to be called. So only until we call it does this thing actually run, right? And it's undefined because we didn't give it anything. So if I said, hey, let me give it a name, NYC, it should produce an object called NYC. If I said, hey, I want to have a location. Actually, this should work. I think this might actually work here too. I'm going to say, big NYC. Let's see if this works. This is something new with ES6, with the new JavaScript, where if the key is also equal to the value, which would be location, right? Because that would be the variable name, right? Or the key is equal to the variable, you only have to state it once. So I actually could go back here and just say name and location, and we should be able to get those key value pairs. Okay, I'm not gonna, once again, walk down the road of this. I just wanted to show you one instance of reproducibility, okay? So let's do this. Go into the student examples and create a file called classes. So you could work through this, or, once again, if you want to do the REPL, you can do the REPL as well. It's up to you. Just give you a minute. You know what I'm doing here? Let's see. I just did a poll. I'm just curious. Is anyone interested in more of using REPLs or the files? Files with Node? Okay. Looks like the masses have spoken. I can't argue with that kind of wow, stuff that goes through my head. And then the reality is far different.
I think the one thing that the REPL messes with is, it's easy and it's nice that it prints out real quick, but the syntax is kind of an issue between what you're typing in there and then what we would have to type in on Atom. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool.
I think it's also a creature of habit. We've all gotten so used to it that it's probably just second nature now to just do the node.
Just do the node? Then I shall listen to the wishes of those that have spoken, and we'll do node. I'm not averse to the node. I just, once again, going back and forth at times is just tedious. But we shall do so today. Okay. So for Josh, Lauren, and Yashira, our wishes have been crushed. It's okay. You learn to live with wishes that are crushed. Anyway, so we are going to create a class to define the blueprint for creating objects. So I'm going to start here with probably the most basic thing. There's things out there that you already conceptualize as having kind of blueprints. And, one of them is a person. So I'm going to say here class person. So I'm going to add some notes here just so that we kind of, we're all on the same page here. That class is a keyword, right? Is a reserved keyword. It's used to create it's used to define classes, okay, or to create a class. Because later when I say create, I'm going to say instantiate, or to create a new instance. So maybe we're defining the class here, and then we instantiate it later, okay? And there's another keyword for that. So I have this class person, and creating this class person, right? Or this thing is empty as of right now, but we're going to want to fill it with things. But let's test this out. And so we can instantiate. That's the keyword, instantiate or create new objects using the new keyword, right? Classes are instantiated, or new instances of classes are instantiated using the new keyword, right? So maybe I'll do this. I'm going to uppercase this as
Hey,
class.
Joe,
Yeah.
real quickly. So when you're defining a class, we don't follow the traditional camel case. We just go all uppercase.
Okay, so that's a really good point. Thanks for pointing that out, Christian. So how often do you see an uppercase, a variable name that begins with an uppercase? How often have you seen that up to this point?
Like never.
Like never, right? All right. That's kind of the answer I was looking for. So one distinguishing factor, this is semantics. This is not, if we did it as a lowercase, in all intents and purposes, it should work. Classes, in order to kind of represent visually that it's a class, classes have first letter as uppercase, okay? And the reason why that is so that when I look at this thing, this class, I know that that's a class because of the uppercase. It's a matter of semantics versus like strict coding. Nothing prevents us from making this lowercase. At least nothing that I know of prevents us. The only time that we will run into where it is a mandatory uppercase first letter situation is when we get into React. React is very, very strict in how you write it. React uses classes all the time. And because they use classes and it parses through the file looking for things like this with an uppercase, and it treats it like an ES6 class, and it does things to it. It kind of like takes it and does a bunch of stuff to it. If we don't have the uppercase, then it won't work as we need it to work. Okay, so I'm glad you pointed that out. The only time or whenever you see an uppercase in a variable, I'm going to say 99% of the time in JavaScript, it's because it's representative of a class. Or there's an older version of this system that we're using, and they were called constructor functions. And so previously, in ES5, we would have done something like this, function person. We would have done that, okay? We're not going to delve into constructor functions because they're kind of an older way of doing things, and we want to kind of emphasize the ES6, the new ways of doing things. Although you're going to see constructor functions out there in the wild all the time. But just know between the two, if we had to choose between teaching you one or the other, classes would be the way that I would go to teach object-oriented programming. Okay? So we have this, and we're going to now instantiate this new instance. So I'm going to say const me is equal to new person, right? Const me is equal to new person. And I'm going to say console log me. And let's see what we get here. I'm going to save the file, node, classes, boink, boink. And we see that it's like, oh, what is this thing? Well, that's representative of a class right there. You see what it output? It output the thing, the class name, and then it output the curly braces to say what's inside of this thing is the inner workings of the class itself, okay? And once again, you can instantiate new instances. Does anybody have an idea as to why I'm using the const variable here instead of let's. Not that you could use either one right here, but semantically, what am I conveying to someone else?
You don't want the person to change.
Exactly. When I instantiate this new thing of you aren't going to change later on, right? Aaron's not going to be a different Aaron in an hour from now, right? Aaron may have a new skill, a new method. He may learn how to, write React and like coding languages, and we could add to an array of languages that you've learned how to do. Maybe you learned a new skill and you know how to cook. And so cook could be a skill, and you could actually have a method that says Aaron.cooking, and Aaron is in the process of cooking things, right? So remember that this uppercase P is a semantic representation that this is a class, and const is a semantic as well as enforceable way of saying you can never change me to be anything else. Like once you create me, I'm created in this application, and I will never be anything else but me, which is nice to know, right? You're never going to change. Console log, and then I'm going to use the just type of to see what it is. And, we'll do it both, console log, hey, type of, just to make sure. Obviously, we're going to get the same thing. I'm going to clear the screen, run it, and we get that it's an object. So, I'm saying we're creative. This is object-oriented programming. We're instantiating a new instance of a class. But if I was to say, what kind of thing is this? Well, in the end, it is a class. I think another way we could do this too, I don't use these too often, but if I said, me instance of object, I think this should come out to true. I think so. Let me see. Use instance of, no, I think I wrote it. Object is not defined. Maybe it's object as in quotes, strings here. Let me see. I'm gonna comment these out real quickly, and let's see. Get rid of that. No.
I think it needs capital O.
What's that?
It needs a capital O for object.
It does, right? Okay. Instance of. Let's see here. Once again, these are things like I don't really use them all that often. So when it comes time to running them, yeah. Is it uppercase O for object? You said?
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, I'm just going to take a look later. I'll figure out what it is. Console. I think it is an uppercase. I'm going to make this lowercase. Let's see. I don't know. I can see that that's a keyword. You see the difference? You see if I do uppercase O, it's kind of gray. If I do lowercase, it's black. So that you see how the new keyword is black. Instance of is black. So let's test this out. And no. So it's not working. Instance of is not an object, right? New instance of, right-hand side of instance of is not an object.
And you need to probably remove those quotes.
Oh, gotcha. Here we go. Let's try this. One more time. After this, we'll move on. There we go, true. Cool. So now I'm determining that this thing is an object. And do you see how object is uppercase here, right? When I did type of, it returned back a lowercase o. So I was just under the impression, oh, it's a lowercase o, right? This returned back, or the way we need to define it, is an object with an uppercase O, which insinuates what? That this object is a class, right? That is some sort of class instantiator. And we could do something like let obj is equal to, which we never do, new object, right? We could do something like that, but we don't, okay? You could even do the same thing with array. You could say array is equal to new array. Like there's an array object also, but we don't do that. We create literals of these things. And if I want a new array, I just do that. Okay, and it's a lot easier to do that. Or if I want an object, I would do that to create an object. Okay, so if ever you needed to kind of determine if something was a very specific instance of, you could do that, or you could get the type of by doing that, right? This just returns the type of. This kind of compares the things to validate that it is of this type. Otherwise, you would have to get the return value here and then say, oh, if the return value is equal to yada, 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 then you're an object, right? This actually will return true or false. So it kind of does it in one shot. Sweet. why don't I give you guys just a, minute or two to create those objects, and just test it out. Okay. I will put, unless we came up with a new emoji, I'll put the squid there. You just click on the squid.
So for class, do we need to define like a const or let or anything, or
no? Once you do this, we can call the new person class anywhere within the code itself.
No, what I mean is you have defined class person, but before class, do we need to say const, let, or something?
No.
Like that? Yeah.
No, we don't do that. When we create these classes, think of it like this, Pooja, and that's a really good question too. Think if we were creating a function, I don't always have to, and I've seen, Matt's creating it, and you'll see it a lot. A lot of the times people do this, right? Hey, const count is equal to a function, right? A fat arrow function, and I'm storing it inside of a variable. I don't have to do that, right? I could have written it like, well, because this is fat arrow, so I'm going to just do it as a function itself, right? I could have just done this. Function count, right? Two ways of doing it. There's this way and there's this way. This function is not storing itself in a variable, yet this one is, okay? Does anyone know the difference between creating functions in this manner? Anyone have any idea?
I think it has something to do with during runtime, and one is executed during the runtime only, and other is already stored in memory, something like that.
Yes, you are correct. Yeah, this function right here is stored in memory. This one will be executed once you call count. Then it investigates the variable and then loads it. And if I wanted to call this function, I have to do it after it's been defined versus this function here. So if I said count 1, count 2, and say I wanted to call count 1, I would have to do this. If this was count 2, I could call count 2 here, and I could call count 2 here. But I could not count 1. This won't work. And the reason is because we're trying to call a variable before it's defined. The fact that this is defined here means we can only call that variable after it's been defined. When we do it like this, the code works. You can call the function before or after, which leads to what you were saying is when this is kind of compiled, this function is kind of loaded into the global namespace first, and then the code kind of runs through and is like, oh, you want to call count 2? Count 2 is already loaded here in memory, and we can run it at any point in time. This would not work. We would actually hit it after, okay? So I'm going to try running this. Let's see what happens.
I have a question, Joe.
Happened. What? Yeah.
I have a question. For some reason, when I put in that class person, I'm getting an unexpected identifier.
Okay. Can you share your screen and we'll take a look? We'll have to stop sharing, right? I'm so used to math teaching now that when I come on, I'm like.
Oh, nope, wrong one.
Okay.
I don't even know how to. I hate the two screens. It messes me up because I don't know how to move it. Here, I'll just redo it. Sorry.
I think once you share one screen, I think that's it. Like.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Class person, meet new person. I think you have the parens. Let me see the class person here.
Class is capitalized.
Oh, and class is capitalized too. Yeah. Try doing that. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
See how the purple color coding?
Yep.
All right, run it. All right, so it's missing something after. Do you see how the parens here? You see how the parens here? You have a space. I don't have a space.
I can't see yours. And
Oh, okay. So on line 12 and 13, when you
Yeah.
instantiate the new instance, you have space between person and the parens.
Oh.
Get rid of that space. Let's see if this works.
And type of is lowercase.
I'm used to writing in camel case.
And that
Yeah.
me instance of object is an uppercase O. Yeah.
You only changed one of the type ofs.
Yeah. The last one, the line 18, the object would have been an uppercase O. Me instance of object is an uppercase O. Boom, right there. Save that. Give that a shot. Let's see.
There we go.
Okay. It's working.
I go.
Cool. Yeah, tiny little thing.
Also, real quick, so
Yep.
this const me equals new person.
Yep.
Does that create a whole new class of me, or just an object inside the class person?
So it instantiates a new instance of the person class. So the person class up here, right? This person is really, so just in like layman's terms, right? Person is a prototype.
Joe, you got to share your screen.
Oh shit, yeah, sorry. Here we go, we're back. So person is a prototype. And when we instantiate a new instance, we're only like calling the class, calling that class, and it's giving back to us a new instance. The class itself remains intact.
Oh,
It's like-
okay. I
Yeah, it's like
gotcha.
calling a function, right? When you call the function is there. You can call it as many times as you want. The function will return to you as many times the thing that it's supposed to return as often as you call it. So we haven't mutated the actual class itself. All we're doing is building a new thing off of it, right? And we obviously have to give the thing some stuff, right? Okay. I'm just going to comment this out. We don't need that for right now. Okay. Cool. We're all good. I got 13, 14. Anyone else have problems? So I got is 13 squids and one, I don't know what that, a bug. 22. There you go. Bloop, 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 bloop. All the numbers coming. Sweet. That's what I want. So let's take it to the next step. We're going to add some methods to a class. Okay. Methods to the class. So I have this class. We have the class person already, right? So here's my class person, right? And I want to add a method. Now, a method is a function. Okay, so that's all a method is. So let me just put here, a method is a function assigned to, and I'm going to say a class / object because you know that you can associate methods with objects. Matt has gone over that this week. And once again, this class is just a very special class, right? I'm just going to get rid of that. We don't need those there either. So I'm going to add, I'm going to say greet, and I'm going to say console log hi, really emphatically, right? Hey. And so once we instantiate a new person, like we did, right? I'm going to get rid of the you so we can just have the me there. And then once again, if I was to run this, let's see, I'm just going to run it. Let's see what we got. Did it output? Oh, I didn't console log me. I'm going to console log me. I just want to see, did it output? I don't see the method. I just see empty curly braces. That's going to change later when we give it properties. Right now, I don't see it, but I would love to instantiate this new thing. So what if I do greet me dot greet? Let's see what happens here. I get hi. So it's giving me this hi, it's responding back with my message, and that's kind of what we wanted, right? So we're able to call the method by doing this. So here we call the method, right? And you call a function, right? You either execute a function, you call a function. I almost always default to saying calling a function because you call it by its name. And you just slap a couple of parens on it, and boom, the function runs, okay? So we're adding a new method. And once again, this would work with you or me. So if I did go back to, hey, you is equal to new person, right? And I did the same thing if I console log you dot greet, well, we should get 2 of those, right? Hi and then hi. I forgot why I get all these undefined. I know Matt explained it. So now we have, because this function, you know why? Anybody have an idea why? Just like brainstorm why that happened.
It's because you're console logging in the greet function, and then you're also console logging the call. So if you just either returned in greet or remove that, it would be perfect.
Let's test this out. Cool. Let's give that a shot. Yeah. Cool. So we're able now to associate methods with our particular class, right? Now, just greeting like that, saying hi, doesn't allow or is not providing us anything extraordinary. And to the point where I want to customize. I really want to customize my greeting. So I want to greet someone else. So this is a function, so I can add a parameter here, and the parameter will be other person, right? Who do you want to greet? I want to greet this other person. And in here, I'm going to say, hey, I want to greet the other person. I'm going to use string concatenation, other person, plus, and I'll remove this over here. I'm going to put a space here, because once this string is concatenated, I'm going to use single quotes. I like to use single quotes. Once this is concatenated, this space will provide the space between the word and the other person, right? So now if I run this, we get I because I didn't put anything in here. Hi, Joe. Let's do this so we can give it whatever we want. Hey, Paul, doesn't matter. We run it. And now we're able to take an input because it's a function. And so in this instance, Joe is an argument, right? That's what it is. It's an argument that's being passed into, it's a parameter, right, that we're passing in, okay? Sweet. Cool. So I'll give you a moment to kind of catch up and create and add the greet method also. Put another squid there. Let me know when you're done. We're almost there.
So I'm trying to do this type of person. I was expecting it to return as class, but it is returning as function.
Yeah, because it sees that as kind of a function. This type of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Type of person, and it's returning as function.
That's its return value. So you're saying if you did type of person right here, like this?
Yes.
Let's see what we get. Yeah, so it sees it as a function. Now, I'm going to say it sees it as a function for this reason. Because the predecessor to this class, the ES5 version of a class, right? Because a class is ES6. It's the new version of JavaScript. was a constructor function. That's what it was called. And so we created it as function person. That was what it was in ES5. And so my guess is, even though we're using the ES6 version of it, when it uses the instance of, it must be like going under the hood and being like, what are you really? Because these classes, and you're going to hear this word used too, like it's syntactic sugar, right? Syntactic sugar being a term that relates to writing it like this is kind of more intuitive and easier and prettier than writing it in the old way. Okay, so syntactic sugar means that this thing is really this thing under the hood. We're just dressing it up and making it look prettier. That's really what it means, syntactic sugar. So that's my guess why this is returning a person, because it really is a function in the end. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know if there is I don't believe there is a class type in JavaScript. Okay. JavaScript is not object oriented. Okay. It has objects, but it's not an object oriented programming language. Other programming languages, everything is like a class of something. Like Ruby, everything is a class. Cool. Looks like we're good. All right. So let's give this person right here, we're going to give them some properties. Okay. Now, in order to give this person properties here, I'm going to go here, properties. We have to use this keyword constructor, right? Okay. Once again, this works with spaces here or no spaces. So, you know, in the class, you can have spaces or no spaces, but when you're outside of the class, you can't instantiate something like that. That won't work. I don't think it'll work. So we have this constructor function. And the constructor function is something that gets called once at each time the object is created. And the constructor function is a way that we can give this thing some properties. Okay, the properties of this class are going to reside inside of the constructor. So I'm going to say here, constructor is how we assign properties. Assign properties to a class, okay? To a class instance, right? So we're creating these kind of properties that can be inherited by every instance of the new person that we create. And so it runs once, okay? Let's put another note here. All right? The constructor runs only once, okay? When the class is called, okay? That's it. We call the class, we instantiate a new instance, this thing runs, and then it doesn't really run again. And so in the constructor, we can give we can give this person some properties. And we use the this keyword to do so. So I'm going to say, hey, let's flags. One second. I just want to take a look at something. Default value. Oh, you know what? Hold on 1 second. Yeah, we're doing it. Just making sure I didn't jump to the other ledger. For a minute there, I thought my brain was like, this. So I'm going to say this.legs is equal to 2. I'm a person, I have 2 legs, right? That's it. And this looks like, the way that we're defining it looks like we're creating variables, right? This looks like a variable. When we create a variable, we give it a name, it equals something, and then we give it the value that we want it to equal. And then in normal JavaScript, you know, you should have a semicolon after like the expression finishes. This.arms is equal to 2. This dot eyes is equal to blue. This dot hair is equal to, you know, I don't really have any hair, but if I had hair, it would be black or gray, salt and pepper now. Okay, so these particular properties, we are predefining them. So I'm sure it's going through your head what, like, hey, when I instantiate a new instance of me, I don't have black hair, I don't have blue eyes, right? And you don't. So we're going to have to come up with a method or a way of giving values or passing them in to this thing so that we can give it these unique values, okay? So we created this constructor. I'm just going to add here. It's having us kind of add a new method also, right? So I'm going to just say, hey, console log, and we can use this method later. I hate when my Segway is in the shop, right? There we have our method, right? So I'm going to just kind of stretch this out a little bit so we can see it. I'm going to save it, right? Now, if we were to show this, I'm going to comment out the greeting because we know the greeting works. I just want to console log here, console log me. Let's see what we get when we console log me. Okay, so now what I'm getting is I'm getting the properties. You see, I see legs, arms, eyes, and hair. I'm getting the properties that we defined earlier. I don't see the methods, but I do see the properties, okay? So console logging this instantiated instance of a class will not expose the methods. It only kind of exposes the properties that were defined, okay? And it is a special keyword. So the kind of keywords that we have, right? So I'm just going to put here maybe keywords. Keywords that we've used so far are class, new, and constructor. Those are the keywords that we're working with when we're dealing with creating new classes, all right? And each one of the keywords has its own purpose when we're doing this, okay? And there's also, you know, I don't want to open it up in a separate pane. There's also a list here of the reserved keywords, things you've already maybe worked with, const, lets, you know, var are keywords. You can't use them. Type of, we can't use instance of, instance of is here. We're going to see super in just a minute. And they don't have constructor there. Huh, interesting. So this must be an older list unless I'm going to see constructor down here. I don't see it. So they haven't updated this to include constructor because I don't see it. Interesting. They got to update this. Cool. So I'm going to give you a moment. Add those. Where'd the beard? I shaved it, Josh. At some point in time, it gets so annoying. I don't handle it well.
I heard we weren't supposed to shave our beards off.
It makes me look 10 years younger, too. You don't have the salt and pepper hair, so when it starts coming in for you, you'll be like, yeah, maybe I'll shave it today.
I'm trying to grow mine out, actually. So there's some gray in there. Don't worry.
All right.
I'm lacking the actually having a beard that fills out part.
Oh, well, there's plenty of time, Josh.
I will gladly share with you if I could, because within a day, mine is like uncontrollable.
Yeah, you just let it grow long enough. It doesn't matter if you have bald patches or not. They just get covered up.
The secrets of SEI, huh? You only learn those tips here. Okay, we'll give everyone a chance to create it. Hit the squid.
I love how you put the squid under. I shave it, so everyone just fits perfectly.
Things sometimes elude me. My sequence of things is not always on point. You're right. That does look a little weird. I'm going to delete that. I don't want that kind of biting me in the butt later on. Cool. So it looks like everyone's good. Awesome. 11 to 12, right? Awesome. We have this. All right. So we have a few more things to kind of get into here. It is 12 o'clock. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a 10-minute break? Come back at 12:10, and then we'll jump into the rest of the lecture. Cool? Awesome. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Sweet. We're back on. Awesome. So we left off with what is this, which once again is I don't know, it's a confusing concept in JavaScript at first. Once you kind of wrap your head around it and understand it, you kind of know what we're talking about, what this is. So I'm going to say that this, and I'm going to add that to our keywords, this, because this is a reserved word. This really represents something. And this, to me, is something that pertains to context. Like, I am in this room right now, right? I'm not in your room. I'm not in another room. I am in this particular room. If I get up and I go to another room, then I would be in that room or in the context of this room, the room that I'm standing, right? The things that you're holding, like I'm holding this pen, not that pen. So this, the concept is context. It represents something. And so when we reference this here, right, these properties represent the current context of the person who we instantiated, right? Because at any point in time, someone else's eyes may be black or brown or green, right? And so their eyes, their context of this as a person, this eye is brown, right? So this here is going to represent that in the context of the situation or the scope of something, okay? So one way to kind of convey this, this is kind of how, when I'm conveying this, I'm going to do it with this vending machine, but when I go to developer tools, so say I'm in developer tools, I could type in the console, I could type this, and it sees it as this kind of keyword, and if I do this, it shows me the window. The window is this whole window here, right? And the window has properties to it, and it's got all these methods associated with it. It's a window object because it has curly braces, right? And what do you think that uppercase W means? What do you think that is? What did we learn that? Yeah, right? I mean, maybe when this version of JavaScript, when they wrote this, maybe it was a constructor function at the time they wrote it, because this thing has been around for a while. But when we create it as a class. So yes, you will see this. Anytime you see the uppercase, it becomes a class in our minds. And so when I type in this here, because I'm in the window, it's like, hey, you're in this window. That's the context, right? And so when we go here into, say, this vending machine example, right? So if I was to just kind of work with this vending machine example, hey, const vending machine is equal to an object. We have snacks. I'm not going to write out all the snacks, but we have snacks. We have an array of snacks. I'll just do one. Name, Kit Kat, with single quotes, right? Kit Kat, price, I don't know, 6, right? So say I have here, now I'm going to add a method. So I have my snacks, because this is an object. I need the comma, right? When we did the class itself, right? I don't really have commas here. There's no comma here. There's no comma here. You don't need it inside of a class, right? There's no comma after these definitions here. But in an object, an old school object, every key value pair, you need a comma after it, right? And so snakes is a key that has an array of values, which means that's a key. I'm going to add a method here, vend, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to give it some inputs. And then I'll say, hey, console log vending, and then we'll say vending machine dot snacks, and then we're going to take in some input, right? So that's what this means. Snakes is an array, which means this input value here is going to be a number. 0, 1, 2, whatever it is, whatever the person who executes this. So I'm going to go down here and say, hey, vending machine dot vend, and I'm going to give it the 0 position because that's where KitKat is, right? It's in the 0 position. Let's save this. If I run it, I now get KitKat, right? Now, here, vending machine is actually kind of going up to the top global scope and then coming back down and clicking, oh, snakes. Eesh. Snacks. Man, I really can't spell. Snacks.
I was actually wondering. I'm like, he named his snake Kit Kat?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, it works.
There's a lot of nuances with me. You're gonna have to just appreciate, Aaron. One of them is I can't spell.
I find it humorous. Okay.
All right. My brain is always kind of going like 20 steps ahead, and I'm like, I gotta show them those, and then I gotta slow down. Anywho, we're on snacks, right? So when I call vending machine here, right, it's the same context as calling vending machine out here. It knows that there is no vending machine inside of it. So it goes up to the global scope and saying, hey, is there a vending machine? And then, JavaScript's like, hey, you know what? You're vending machine. And he's like, oh, man, I'm vending machine. Cool. Do I have snacks? Look, I got snacks. They gave me a number. The array has that thing, so I'm going to give it to them, right? Now, what if we were to say, hey, vending machine, I want you to have like an understanding of who you are. How about that? So now the vending machine's like, it opened its eyes and it has this realization there's an I to it now. And it's like, hey, wait a second. This vending machine, there's a context inside of me. And this context inside of me is represented as this, right? This object has a snacks property, and we can then give it the value. And let's, once again, just test this out. Let's see if it works. And it works just as well, okay? And what we're saying is when we represent this, it's saying, hey, this thing here, the context of living inside of this object, it's like, hey, I'm inside of this object, so this represents the living inside of the object. And it's like, oh, you want it? Well, oh, I'm inside of the object, and I have this property called snacks. You want it? Here it is. Give me a number, and I'll return to you, or give me a position, and I'll return the value to you. What if we also just did this? What if we maybe just console log this to see what we get, right? So let's do that. And you see that when we console log this, we get vend, and it says, hey, vend is a function. And it's like, hey, I know. And remember when we did the object earlier? I think, Pooja, when you were like, when you try to run the method on the object or the class, it came back as a function, right? So this is saying, hey, vend, this has a context here, right? So we got back our snack, and then the next thing we get is that vend is the method, and because we're inside of this now too. So we do have context here, and it's like, oh, this is a function because I'm inside of a function, but I also know that I'm inside of this object. Right? It's not going to output the object's internals. That's not going to happen. Just like when we output the object earlier and we console logged the instantiation of the person, we didn't see any methods, but we saw properties. Here, we're not going to see all the properties. This is just what it outputs. It's saying, hey, vend itself is what I'm inside. Vend is a function. That's what it is. But this thing here knows that it's inside of this, and it can go up and ask its parent, right? Its context of this is vending machine. That's what this represents inside of this object. Okay, if we were outside of this object, I just want to console log, hey, this is this. Let's just see what this returns. What's it got? I'm gonna get rid of this one here. Let's see what happens. Boom. And we get this is this. It's just an empty object. It's not even returning us anything but just an empty object. So if you console log here within the terminal, it's like, this really isn't anything. I don't really know what you want. I'm going to give you back kind of an empty object. Okay. But we know that when we did it here, right, in developer tools, and we type this, we got back window. We got back something, right? So the context of this is changing depending on where you call it, right? If I'm in here, this is the window. If I'm here, this becomes the vending machine, okay? So it's just a context. So anytime you think of the word this, just always think that this represents context. Where are you at the time that you called this? Okay, just remember that. We're going to be using this quite often with our classes. Okay, so let me just comment this out. I'm not going to be using that. So now that we kind of just have this overview of like, hey, what is this? We're going to go back to our class person. Now, I mentioned before, like, hey, I want to give it some properties, right? Legs, arms, eyes, hair. I'm giving them these default values, but I also want to give it some properties that I can pass in and define for the unique person that I'm creating, right? One of those properties that I'm going to put here that I didn't add before, hey, is this dot name, right? This dot name is going to be equal to name. Now, I'm going to put that here as this dot name is equal to name. Now, I have to figure out a way to pass the name into this thing, right? Into the class. Now, the doorway into the class is through the constructor. And the constructor is a method, right? And a method is a function. And a function takes parameters, right? We define parameters, we give it arguments. So I'm going to give this constructor some parameters, right? I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it an age. I'm just going to give it a space. Age. I'm going to give it eyes. I'm going to give it hair. I'm giving it these parameters so that I can pass corresponding arguments later. And those arguments being the actual values that I want to pass in here. So now I know I have name, age, eyes, and hair. I don't want everyone who's created to have blue eyes. I want them to define what their eyes are. I want their color hair to be what their color hair is. I'm going to leave off age for now. We'll just do name, eyes, and hair, right? That's all we really need. And so it's just like we're creating a normal function, no? I mean, this looks almost identical. If I took this thing out and I put it here and I was just like, hey, function constructor, that looks like a normal function, right? Just has this keyword constructor, which is, you know, a reserved keyword, so we can use it, but it looks just like a normal function, right? And this context here represents that it would be a constructor function because this would be the old construct of creating it. So I'm only taking it out so you have context of, hey, this isn't so different than creating a function, right? So now that I have this, right, we can instantiate a new person, me, right? The first argument that I want to give it is my name. Hey, Joe's my name. What was the second one? Because I got eyes and hair, right? So I have brown eyes and I had black hair. When I had it, it was black. Okay, so when I instantiate this instance of this person, I'm going to get rid of any other console logs I might have, right? So there's nothing else. All right, cool. I'm going to go here. I'm going to run it. And now when I output this new person, me, right? A lot of the times when I console log, I precede it with a message like, this is me, right? That's how I kind of write my console logs. So when I have 20 console logs coming out of my script file, I know that this value is represented in some way, shape, or form. The message is telling me what I'm actually outputting. So I'm just going to go here, do it one more time, right? And it says, this is me. Look, I'm a person. That's what I am. I'm a person. Here's my name. Here's the legs. Here's arms. Here's eye. Here's hair. And once again, if I wanted to, I could still execute the greetings. I could walk if I wanted to. All these things are possible, right? So for the walk, all I'd have to do is this, just do me dot walk, and I should output, my segues in the shop, right? I hate when my segues in the shop, okay? So this is how we pass things into the constructor, the class. This constructor here is that kind of conduit. It's the thing that says, hey, if you have things that need to get passed into it, I am the gateway. I am the thing you must pass to, and then I will make the decision on where those things are going to be redefined here, right? Because in essence, I could create these variable names to be different variable names than the ones that are being passed in. Could do that. Maybe not make that much sense, right? Name is name, age is age. There may not be the necessity to change that, okay? So I'm going to give you a moment. Expand your new person to include this and test it out. Let's make sure it works. Here, I'm gonna use fired. You guys are on fire. I had to choose different emojis. I'm not a real big emoji fan.
Hey Joe, I have a question. Just go back to the vending machine for a second. When we name like the input, we don't actually have to write input, right? Like we could just leave it blank and it will give us the input.
Sure. So this input right here, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So input at that point in time is a variable.
Okay.
Right? And this input here represents the value that we pass in. So when I call vend, this zero, a real zero, gets put here, right? This is the parameter. A parameter is a placeholder, right? Yeah. So I'm saying if I pass in something, it's going to go through this doorway, and then inside the function, it takes on the name of this doorway. So input will reference 0, 1, or 2, whatever we passed in. And then anytime we call input, it will then kind of instantiate enumerate the value that was passed in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just making sure because I didn't see it in the next example, and I was just making sure that's why.
Oh, let me see. Did they? Oh, you mean here in the person?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because in essence, we can, like here, see this other person? See this? This here would represent input in this particular context, right? It's a method called greet. Here's a method called vend. It has a parameter called other person. Vend has a parameter called input. When we pass any value in, like a name, if I was to say, hi, Lindsay, other person would then take on the value of Lindsay. And then when I console log other person, we pull the value out and it becomes Lindsay. Same thing here. Yep. Pass in input. Cool.
Yep. Thank you.
No worries. All right, we're at 14. Almost there. Almost there. On fire. I actually took a walk outside on break earlier, listening to Jericho. She said to get up and take a walk. It's a beautiful day out here in New York.
I was going to say, it's actually nice today in New York.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I just walked down the block.
Yep.
Walked right back up. I was like, this is awesome, man.
It's probably a little warmer down by you because I'm upstate, so it's like probably like 10 degrees colder.
Oh, yeah. Where are you located at?
Highland. It's like, okay. You know where Newburgh is?
Those sound they sound like all upstate names. Newburgh.
It's like 2 hours from the city. I actually was born and raised in the Bronx, though.
Oh, you're tough. You're tough, Ryan.
I'm the epitome of the New Eurekan.
Oh, wow. I had a student in my class locally on site in New York, and he was from Brooklyn. And he was like, Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. And he had the movie star accent that you could you pay good money for in Hollywood. It was like, yo, so I got this thing, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, that's crazy. I've lived in New York all my life. I'm not sure I've even met somebody with a strong accent like that.
It's so funny if you're like the 5 boroughs, like we're all different, but somehow like everybody has this different accent. Like right there, though. It's not even like a couple minutes apart.
Yep. It's crazy. Sweet. So we got 23. I think that's just waiting for one more. One more. And somebody stepped away. 24. Hit it out of the park. That's on fire. All right. So as you can imagine, I've instantiated a new instance of me. And at some point in time, maybe I want to change some of those properties, right? This thing exists. It's out there. I can console log me, right? So if I console log, I see that I have these properties, and properties can be changed, right? We didn't use consts inside of this thing, so we didn't even use lets. We just said these are kind of like keys, and they're equal to this, and this kind of creating a global variable. And we're giving it a value, which means if it's a variable and we didn't use the const keyword, then we have the opportunity to change it, right? The only time we used the const keyword was here. So we can't redefine me to be another person, but I can change and alter what is inside of me, right? So we all have the potential of changing what's inside. So that being said, if we kind of go back to our person class, we can, if needed, also change the property. So if I go back here and I say, hey, I'm going to change me.hair is equal to none, right? Shave my head. I got no hair. And then I'm going to console log me. I'm going to do this. Maybe I'll console log me twice. So you can see that before I had something and now I don't, right? I don't have any more console logs. Cool. Boom, boom, boom. And there we go. Black hair and no hair, right? Once again, I could have console logged just hair, right? Let's see. That should work, right? Should that work? Boom, right? So I can console log just a property from the thing as well, correct? So if I can alter something, that means I can update this thing. I'm not going to say it's a living, breathing thing, but not just because it's a person, but it's something that we instantiated into this kind of memory space. And now we can change and update properties that suit us, right? Just think of a good use case for something like this, like a character or a game. I'm creating a game and I have a person, and this person or a player, I have a person category and I instantiate players from this, and players change in their skill sets. They move up levels and they do different things, and I need to update those unique instances of the people that play my game. And so this would be the prototype for a person in my game, and then I would be able to update them, right? I'm obviously not going to give them less legs and more arms unless that's the game. I don't know, maybe that's the game. But what we can do here in the constructor is give it cats, I'm going to say is true. We can give it default properties. And I'm going to say loves dogs. Okay, so this right here is a default property. This is really cool with ES6. It's an iteration of ES6. You're going to hear that a lot constantly. ES6, ES6, ES6. These are the new things that you can do. And so here I'm saying, like, hey, if you don't pass in anything for love cats, then it's going to be true. Okay? And then, hey, you still have to pass in something for love dogs. So I'm going to go down here and say, all right, well, you know, this dot love cats, right, is equal to whatever was passed in, you know, and I already have a default value set there. love cats is default. So if you don't pass in anything, it is going to be true. If you pass in something, it could be true. You could pass in true, or if it's left blank, it will be false. And then love dogs can be if it is empty. If nothing loves dogs, if nothing gets passed in, then we're going to be true. Okay, so this operator, does anybody remember what that operator is? I think we used that operator already.
Or
That's a or.
Yeah, it's just an or. Hey, so if loves dogs is undefined, which means it's not true, then we're going to just give it true, right? One of these instances needs to be true, right? For an or to work, one of them needs to be true. So if loves dogs has a value, and that value is true, then it'll be true. If it's false, then it'll be false, right? So if they don't pass in anything here, then by default, they love dogs. By default, they love cats, okay? So we can give these default values, and, once again, we can give it a test here, right? I have Joe, love cats. I don't even have to actually pass in values for us to see this. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to comment these two out, right? Just so that we see what those values are. Okay, so I'm going to move this up just a little bit. And we see love cats, love dogs is true. Now we could, once again, because this takes placeholders, I could say love cats. I could say here false, don't like cats. I mean, I do, don't take me wrong. I do love both of those types of animals. And now love dogs is true again. So this apparently isn't going to work the way we think it's going to work, because in an or situation, if one is true, then it's true. It's going to come back as true. So this is kind of going to be misleading in the sense like, I'm always going to love dogs. I don't necessarily want that to be the case, okay? So we're kind of forcing them to love dogs regardless of whatever they pass in here. It's always going to be true, right? Or let me just say, let me try something like this. No, I don't love dogs. Let's see if that produces anything different. Oh, look, I have to give it a value though. I can't just give it false, because if I give it false, the or conditional logic will state that false. Okay, false is false. Yeah, but I still have another shot at it being true. So if you gave me false, then false evaluates to false or true. And then it's like, all right, so I'm going to use true. I only need one of these conditions to actually be a truthy value, right? Because no itself is just a string of text. No evaluates to a truthy value because it is something. False is not. So if I did go up here and maybe put false in quotes, let's see what would happen there also. False comes back as false this time. I can't, just know that the way that this is constructed, there is that kind of limitation, right? The limitation is if I give this a thing of false, then that's going to be an issue, okay? That I have to give it now a string of text. Cool. I give you 2 minutes. Catch up there. I'm going to use another emoji. Let me see. Let me get a good one here. It's a beautiful day. It's got sunshine. My little dude with glasses. I'm not even sure. Hey, Jeremy, what kind of icon is that? What is that emoji? Who's that guy?
That weird little dude who's on like internet, like jokes and stuff.
Monkus. Might have to use him. It's kind of weird. I like weird. In a good way. All right, 21. Almost there. 22. Hands clapping. Very happy. We're going to have one more thing to cover, and then we're going to send you off into lab land. All right, we're good. All right. Let us go to the last thing. So objects interacting with other objects, right? So if we did create two objects, once again, once the thing is created, right, we can then have two things to work with. So if I say, hey, you, me, I'm going to say this person now is Matt. Matt is going to have, you know, blue eyes and maybe, what, blonde hair? Our man Matt. These we don't even need right now, right? Because those values will get defaulted to other values. So we don't need to be concerned with that. We can just say they're going to be true regardless. And I'm going to console log, right? I'm going to console log me anymore. I'm just going to say, all right, so let me go into our constructor. We have one more thing here. So I have these greets, and then I have two kind of greetings. One is just this, you know, hey, hi there. And one is a little bit more classy. So I have classy greeting, and I'm going to put here other classy person, right? Whoops. And then we're going to say console log, and we're just going to be a little bit more proper, right? Greetings, space, plus other classy person dot name, right? Plus, now the fact that you see the dot means what? What does that dot here indicate? That the thing before it is, what is other classy person? Haven't passed it in. But what does the dot insinuate other classy person is? What data type is it?
An object.
Correct, right? So, and name, because it doesn't contain the parens, means that that's a property of an object. If we instantiate a new person, that person really is a new class, but it's kind of an object. And because it's an object and it has a name, then we can get the name from them, right? So if I go down here and I say like, hey, me dot classy greeting, and I say you, right? Let's see what happens. Oh, did I not console log? Console log, greeting, classy greeting. Did I misspell it? Oh, greeting. Bloop. Didn't error out. Greeting Matt. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm passing in the whole instantiation of Matt. His whole object, everything that is Matt, is now inside of here, and I can elicit other properties of Matt that exist. So whatever those properties are, I can see if he loves cats, loves dogs, how many arms and eyes he has, right? I can do that within here because I'm passing in one object to another object. That's all we're doing. Okay, and it shouldn't be such a huge leap for us at this point in time. One object to another object. Anytime you see this dot, as long as you understand the concept of whatever's being passed in here. So this parameter says, I'm just a placeholder. You can give me whatever you want, but you better give it to me in the type of thing that the function itself was meant to use. A function is a reproducible thing. You give it consistent input, it gives you consistent output. right? If you give it something and you gave it the wrong kind of thing, then you're gonna destroy the inner workings of the function. It's just gonna be like, I don't know what to do with this thing called .name. This thing, all you gave me was a string of text. String of text isn't an object, so it doesn't have a .name to it, right? Or a number you gave me. So you must know that you give it an object, and an object must have a property of name for this particular thing to work, okay? I'm only gonna make one change to this, or a couple of changes, so that you can see the difference between string concatenation and something called template literals. It's an easier way, ES6 way of writing out strings of text and variables in one long string. Instead of using these plus symbols here and single quotes, we're gonna do this, watch. I'm going to get rid of this single quote. I'm gonna get rid of all of the quotes altogether. And I am going to have backticks. So that's above the tab is a backtick. I'm gonna put a backtick there. I'm gonna put this variable here is gonna have a $, curly brace, and then I'm gonna put that. Let's just make sure it works, and then I'll go right back and explain everything that I just did. Let's just make sure it works. Reading that, it works. All right. So template literals is a new ES6 way of replacing this older way of string concatenation. The backticks mean that anything inside the backticks can be strings of text or variables. Variables must be enumerated using curly braces and the $. That's really all that means, okay? Curly braces and $sign mean that any variables will be enumerated and their value pulled out, and then the string itself is concatenated with the strings of text. And so a space here is a literal space. I don't have to do, well, here was a literal space too, but I don't have to concatenate them. It treats this as one long string of text, and you can add as much more text as you want. I could say, oh, greetings, Matt. I could say, hey, other classy person. Hey, Matt, what you up to today, right? Up to today, right? I could re-reference the same variable and boom, I have, hey, what you up to today? Oh, look, it said object. Whoa, what did I do here? Did I do something wrong? Oh, because I didn't do .name, right? You see my mistake here? When I instantiated the string of text, I said that variable is really the whole object, and so it gave me object. And if ever you see this, it means you're trying to output into the console or into HTML an actual object, and you can't do that. I just can't like print an object on the screen. That doesn't work. You print particular properties, values, right? You call a property and you get a value. That's what you print on the string. I can't print the whole object. So now if I do this, oh, I didn't save it. I get, hey, greeting, Matt. Hey, Matt, what you up to today? Okay, just another way of doing it. You're gonna see string template literals all the time. Do a quick Google search. It'll take you to like W3 schools. I have
a question.
Yeah, sure.
For some reason, for when you did the classy greeting, I'm getting greeting undefined. So I'm looking at it and I'm just trying to figure out, because I did it exactly how you did it.
Can you share your screen? I'll take a look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting greeting undefined exclamation point.
Greeting. Are you passing in? You are passing in you.
Yes.
Right? So me, classy greeting, other person is you. You're getting undefined, right?
Yeah, right here.
So can you just console, I just want to make sure like you is being console log U, and let's just see that U is an object and it has that property, right?
Nothing comes up.
So then maybe
Yeah.
it's not instantiating. New
Are
person.
you storing the name in your constructor?
This name?
So I don't think, go back to your constructor. Go up to your constructor. You don't have a this dot name.
Oh. Well, that would be why.
So what you're doing is you're passing in arguments, and there's no placeholder for it. So it's like, what am I going to do with this? I can't join it with something.
It's looking for something that's not there.
Exactly.
So is it just blank here, or are we passing? Is that where we just put me and then you?
No. You would in this dot name is going to be equal to name.
Oh.
There you go.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then if you run that again, you should.
There we go.
Sweet.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yep. Perfect.
So would there be a way to add that without actually typing it through like a function or like push, I guess, or something similar, like adjust the setup?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So let me share my screen. So once if I get the question correct, it's like, how do I update these properties from inside of the class constructor? Is that the question?
Yeah.
All right. So you remember when I had done hair, when I had reset the hair I did it from outside the constructor, right? I was like, me.hair is now equal to none. And it went inside.
Could you speak up a little bit? Sorry, I got using a saw back there.
Okay. Yeah, so when I did this, I did it outside of the constructor. I grabbed a property, I grabbed the object, grabbed its property, and I reset it to something new, right? But we could create, and it is always kind of best practices to use these methods as ways to alter the properties. So here we have set hair. There's another method here, right here, called set hair. So I'm going to say set hair. And I'm going to say hair color, right? You're going to give me a hair color, whatever that is. And then we are going to say this dot hair is equal to hair color, right? So we're going to use a method to interact with the internal properties. And that's kind of always the best practices. These are kind of like, in this instance, this is a setter. And we're using that kind of keyword set hair. Maybe I want to get their name, so I would say get name or get greeting or something like that. If I wanted to elicit properties from here, then I would use getters and setters, getters to get and setters to set. So if we did do this set hair, now I could say something like me dot set hair, right, is equal to, originally it was black, so maybe I'm just going to, hey, purple. I got purple hair now. I'm going to console log, right? I don't have any getters for hair, so I actually have to elicit the hair property out of here. But I could have done something like this. Get hair color, right? I could do this. And if I did this, it would console log, hey, this is your hair color, right? And then I would say this dot hair. So let's set it. Let's do this. I'm going to first, before I set it, I'm going to get my hair color, right? We're going to get rid of this greeting. And all I'm going to do is just, here we go. I already have the console log for me. So I'm going to do this console log here. Let's see what we get. I'm going to clear this out, run it. Let's see what we got. I got hair is black, right? Awesome. I'm going to set my hair. I could do it this way, but set hair is a function, so I can't do it this way. This is the wrong way of doing it. I would have to do purple because it's a method. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to call myself again. So let's do this. I'm going to put it before and after, right? So now we can see when I originally created it, it's brown. I'm going to change it. And then I am going to, this is my hair color. And then I'm going to use that method, get hair. I'm going to say here, get hair color, right? It's a method. And it's already console logging, so I don't necessarily have to console log it. It's going to give me the undefined again, but no worries. Oh, what happened here? Get hair color is not defined. Get hair, oh, because it's me.get hair color, right? And there we go. My hair before was black. My hair now is purple, right? There's my hair color. Set hair is purple, and now it's giving me this hair. But it's just running the console log twice, right? Because I have.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So that's how you're going to interact with the key value pairs, because what you don't want are users actually kind of knowing what these key value pairs are. And the methods, these methods can be the gateways in which you control access to these key value pairs. If they don't know the proper method, then they can't change the thing. And so methods allow you to do that. They may not know. These names here may not be as intuitive as we think they are. Maybe it's like this dot human name, right? Or this dot person name or something like that, which they wouldn't know about, or this dot underscore name. I could have easily created something like this, underscore. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to type in there. I could have done something like that. No one's going to guess that that's a name, right? No one's going to be like, oh my God, they got 2 underscores ahead of it. They're never going to know that. So their only way to like update name would have to go through a method. It's just a control mechanism so that people just don't start changing things willy-nilly, right? Cool.
All right. Is this how a lot of APIs and things like that work, or is that not the use case for this?
So an API is just us pulling data. So when the API is maybe constructing its data itself, it might use something like this. I don't know if they're using classes to instantiate new instances of the data. They're probably running a SQL query. The query is coming back with the data, and they're just kind of aggregating it into this one unit, and then they send you back the data, right? Chances are we're not using classes to create. I haven't seen it, and we don't do it in SEI where we use constructors to construct data types. These are kind of prototypes. And a data type doesn't need to have methods to update the data type, right? We're just giving you data, and then you do whatever you want with the data, okay?
Hey, Joe, I was wondering, before you go on, can you draw like a diagram over your, just the last one on like how they all interconnect really fast, like with arrows?
Oh, I would draw, but I don't have that software installed. I'm working on getting that software installed that Matt uses to draw it out.
Yeah.
You can do it, I think, on Annotate on Zoom itself, and then save
Oh,
it.
I see. All right, so I just clicked on Annotate. Let me see. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we can see that.
So this is going to be a rough drawing because I have my mouse pad. So let me see what we're trying to do here. So Lindsay, what exactly do you want me to describe one more time?
I just feel like when just your outline that you already have, like for your instructor notes, if you could just draw on that so I could see it all in one thing on the left side of your screen, just to see
here.
where it's all going, that would be great.
Okay, so let's see this. So is it going to let me do this? So we have this U person, right? That U person is going to be passed in here. Okay? And it is a person, and this person is an object, right? So when U is created, right, U is going to be this object, and this object is going to have, key value pairs. Here's the key, and then we're going to have a value, right? And we already know the keys are going to be things like arms, legs, names, and then the values would be what we passed in. The key is name, the value is map. So we pass that into here. So U is an object. So now I'm going to go back up here. So once I pass that in, I'm going to go to where greeting is right here, right? Here's the classy greeting. And I'm actually passing in that object here, okay? So now you are an object. You are this object, or whatever was passed in is this object. And because it's an object, I can call the object, right? And then I can say, hey, dot name, right? I can say, this is so hard, name, right? I can do this, and I can elicit the value from the object that was passed in. So the fact that we're passing in a full object, that object goes, we call this method here, we're passing this value u turns into this, and then that goes inside of here, and it takes the place of the object, and now we reference you as other classy person. And because I'm referencing you as other classy person, that's your new name, I can then elicit any of the key value pairs that I want from you by using the dot notation, right? So that dot right here means that the thing before me is an object, and it has this value. So this value here is what we're eliciting, but I'm eliciting it from the instance of you, not the instance of me. Does that help? I'm sure my drawing helps all that much.
Yeah, no, now I like just see it better. So I understood it, but now I can see it visually. So thank you.
Cool. Cool. I am working on getting a pen. I wanted to start drawing as well. I'm from the on-site class, and when we're doing on-site, I always have whiteboards. I'm always using whiteboards, but I want to start working with drawing here, and then maybe capturing the drawings and saving them. Cool.
Hey, Joe, I got a question.
Sure, yeah, Chris.
So I just want to make sure when you're passing the U object to classy greeting, it's referencing. It's not actually making like a copy of the U object. It's referencing the original object, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's taking this U object. Actually, no, because I would say that if we wanted to change the other person value, we could actually do that. I'm just trying to think of use cases, so I'm going to turn off the annotations. And say I did pass in this other person's name. And inside of here, maybe we'll do this too. I'm going to say other classy person dot name is equal to Jack, right? It was Matt. Now we're going to change it to this, right? Now I'm curious. Maybe it is not you anymore, but I'm curious now. Now that we've done that, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to get rid of that, right? We did the classy greeting because I want to instantiate that. And then let's do this. Console, let me see if it actually did it. Console log you, right? Now, if we changed your name, we should see it there. So I'm going to save this, get rid of the annotate, this not go away. I'm going to try this. Let me see. Oh. Annotations. Okay, that person did not change it. Console log you. Oh, only because I have to. No, here's console log you. Here's person. Greetings, Matt. I think it's still doing the greetings, right? Greetings, you. Console log. I'm going to do this. This is you. Right? I don't need to console log me anymore, so I'm going to get rid of me. Let's just do this. We get one classy greeting. Let's see. One classy greeting, and then it's not even console logging. This is you. Oh, yeah, Jack, look. See that? So the thing that you passed in is a reference to the thing. Because in JavaScript, I'm going to use this annotation, right? So in JavaScript, just say, like, this is the memory, right? It looks like a little brain. If I have an object that I create up here, and I have a pointer to it, so I have a variable called A, and I pass it in, we're always going to reference this. So if ever I did something like B is equal to A, like I'm trying to make a duplicate copy of it, right? That's what I'm trying to do. A lot of people do that. B is still pointing to the same thing. So if I change a value here, I'm actually changing it to A. Objects and arrays are reference data types. There's primitive data types and there's reference data types. Reference data types create a reference in memory to the thing, And if you ever do something like this where you try to assign another variable equal to it, all you're doing is pointing to the same reference in memory to that thing. If I wanted to duplicate the object, then I'd have to cycle through all of the keys and grab their values and create another object of it, and then store this other object in here. And then I could point to B could be this other object. But I'd have to go through a process of duplicating it. This doesn't duplicate it. It just says, oh, this is where A is, and you want to point to A as well? Sweet. I'm going to point you back to the same thing. That make sense? Cool. Any other questions? These are good questions. These are questions I don't necessarily think of all the time. And you teach this stuff enough, you just kind of teach to the context and then try to explore everybody's thoughts. Okay, so here we go. How do I get rid of these annotations? Disable any annotation. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, there's like, or let me look at it, an X or a clear next to the save. If you open up the menu again and all the tools.
So I'm opening up, disable, stop recording, close the chat.
Or just the bar up top on the right where it says view options, and then go down to annotate and it'll bring up a bar.
So let me see. Optimize full screen. Yeah, I don't see it. Let me take a look on the other. View makes those in the spotlight, stop on remove, put on hold. Spotlight video. Yeah, I don't see it. I'm gonna have to figure it out. Let me go. I'm just gonna move this over here. I'll go through the homework. I'll go through what the lab is. Let me just quickly walk you through the lab, and I'll figure out how to get rid of those student labs. Here we go. Student labs, morning lab. So here we go. Here's the morning lab. You're going to be doing a Westworld lab. Okay, and in this lab, in the student folder, create a new file called Ops Westworld. And what you're going to be doing is this. Has anyone seen Westworld? Anyone know the concept of Westworld? Nobody? Really? It's crazy, man. Westworld is like the future. Has anybody seen Black Mirror on Netflix?
Yeah, I've seen them both. It's pretty trippy.
Yeah, they're trippy. Like in the next 100 years, this is literally the reality of our world. I kid you not. So these two characters that you're looking at are robots, but robots that act like real people and start to think like they're real people. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and create some hosts. They're really hosts. And what you're going to do is you're going to create some a constructor for this, like a class with a constructor. They're going to have names and occupations, right? And you instantiate a new basic host, give them a name and occupation. That's not so hard. What you're going to do then is extend this, augment your basic host, make it so that your basic host class, when run, will also add a method to your host object. Give your class a say specs method that will log all the specs of the instance. And specs means the properties, right? A spec is just now a property inside of the constructor, right? Name, eyes, consider those to be specs. Then what you're going to do is you're going to create a few arrays, an array that has some random names, some random occupations. And then you're going to create a host array that's an empty array, and you're going to instantiate new instances of the basic host, passing in a name, a random name, and a random occupation. So this is really going to involve not just creating these things, these classes, but also like your ability to loop. So we're kind of combining a few skill sets here, right? If I wanted to create a for loop that loops 100 times, I would have to then pull out a random name and a random occupation and create a basic host and push that into the host array. In the end, because there's only like, I don't know, maybe 20 names here or less than that, you're going to have multiple Laylas that are clerical assistants but that's going to be based on the randomization. I don't know how often Layla and clerical assistant are going to be associated or created as the same person, but they will at some point in time, because if you're going to do it 100 times and you're randomly choosing someone from here, there's a good chance Layla and this clerical assistant will be chosen more than once. That's not a big deal. That's not really the goal of this. The goal of this is just so that you know how to loop, create them, and then work with them. Is that cool? Questions? 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 Okay. So, you know, it's 1:10 now. I want to give you more time. I'm not going to give you just 20 minutes to work on this thing, because it's definitely going to require more than 20 minutes. How about we do I'm going to give you, so if we went to lunch at 1:30, we came back at 2:30. How about we come back at 3 o'clock, and that'll give you 40 minutes to kind of work on this. I have to create the, let me just do the breakout rooms. I'll create the breakout rooms and then open all rooms. I don't think she gave me the, no, hold on one second. Create the breakout rooms. Add a room. I'm going to recreate. Okay, yeah, so here we go. Recreate the breakout rooms. And so what we'll do is I'll let you decide, you know, you guys can work for a little while, go to lunch, come back, work for 20 minutes, maybe go to lunch, come back, jump back into your breakout room, and then we'll continue at 3 o'clock. Okay? Good? Sweet. All right. Bring in the breakout rooms. Nope. Breakout rooms go out? They didn't go out yet? Here we go. All right. They go out now? There we go. Sweet.